would please rise. Thank you.
Okay, tonight for our Pledge of Allegiance, it will be led by Tay Taylor from the Transition Academy. Come on up, Tay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Paul.
Sorry.
You okay?
Proud mama.
Good job.
I must say, Tay looks very handsome tonight. In his
Yes, it's
tie.
time.
That's right. Next on the agenda is the welcome to the visitors. I know we are very crowded tonight, and we are very blessed, and thank you for being here with us tonight. Our student representatives, Ms. Savannah Houston from the Phoenix School, Mr. Owen Brown from CCHS, and Nicole Ransom from SMHS. As always, thank you for being here. Next, Mr.
Yes, we have our first Kids First Award, so with Dr. Spicer, would you please come up?
Good evening. Pineview Elementary and Pleasant Hill Elementary would like to nominate for this award Mr. Pepe Perrone. Mr. Perrone has been an advocate for students throughout Cumberland County. Come on up. And was one of the first to introduce Christmas gifts for underprivileged students through the Blue Jean Project, sponsored by the Rotary Club. Pepe also spearheaded the 4th grade character essays, in which the top 3 essays were awarded prizes. First place always received a new bicycle. That was always an exciting time for both students and families. In addition to these projects, he and his wife Ann, he and his wife Ann have personally sponsored Pineview and Pleasant Hill to attend a performance at the Cumberland County Playhouse with no charge to the students. This generous spirit has allowed hundreds of students to experience the performing arts for the first time. This year, he and his wife have continued that work, and he has expressed many times it's all worth it if it makes a positive impact on one child. He loves the children of Cumberland County. He understands the power and importance of investing in our community by investing in the children. Community leaders like Mr. Perrone set a wonderful example of service, compassion, and generosity.
Yes, he does.
I would like to thank everyone for this award. We're extremely honored, Ann and I both. We love what we do, going to the Playhouse on February 29th, if I'm not mistaken. And so we're excited about that, but we do a lot of other things too. But our greatest reward is the smile you see on the child's face. Whether it's click something and just a math problem might work, or just going to the Playhouse or giving them a simple pair of blue jeans. So we always want to make a difference in the life of a child, a positive difference in the life of a child. And if we all live by that, we'll do great and our school systems will be great. So thank everybody, all the administrators, the board, all these different people that help make all these things possible. We just help. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Eldridge?
Yes.
The CTE department in Martin Elementary would like to recognize Mr. Ed Camera as a deserving individual to receive the Kids First Award. Mr. Camera is retired from his career as an engineer and administrator for CoLinks and has chosen to give his time, energy, and passion for learning to the students at Glen Martin Elementary. Mr. Camera is an outstanding human being and has volunteered countless hours for our students. His impact is shown by how he volunteers 3 to 5 days a week in the STEM classroom and with the Martin Robotics Club. Teaching the students about the Lego robotics competition and the core values was an important skill the students learned from Mr. Camera. His diligence and attention to detail helped the students win their first robotics trophy in the core values section of the competition. In addition, he helps with the food pantry that Martin students take home. Oftentimes, the students who receive these bags of food do not know where their next meal will come from. Mr. Camera models leadership in ways that the students need to see because he always puts others before himself. An example of this is shown, included with this letter, in the pictures from his recent mission trip to Guatemala. His positive attitude and impact on everyone he engages with are evident in the smiles he gives and receives with every interaction. He is deserving of receiving the Distinguished Kids First Award. And I would like to mention some words from the Martin Elementary students. Mr. Camera has taught us so much about the importance of teamwork and stepping out of our comfort zones. During robotics, we have learned how to work together and make an impact on our community and each other. We've learned many things from him about how to build and code robots. His understanding of our problems and frustration and how to assist us without making anyone feel pressured is greatly appreciated. Also from the students, Mr. Camera inspires us to be better people, work hard, and solve problems. He has shown us how we can make a difference in the world using robotics and technology. We are so grateful for the dedication and the knowledge we have learned from Mr. Camera. Thank you, Mr. Camera.
I want to say something about these kids. They make it all worthwhile. I can promise you I'm the biggest kid on the team. You don't have to worry about that. That's any of them. But what I see in these children is our future, and anything we can do to make their futures brighter, we need to do. And I challenge all of you to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Middle Tennessee Pioneer Award.
The Pioneer Award is given to one CTE director in Tennessee each year. This award was established to recognize those CTE directors which have demonstrated extraordinary leadership in their home county and at the state or national level. Dr. Leslie Eldridge won both the Middle Tennessee Pioneer Award and the State Pioneer Award this year.
Ms. Eldridge, thank you for wanting to come back home.
Very deserved, very deserved.
Speech.
Ms. Polson?
Coordinating School Health and Health Services would like to say a huge thank you for Stone Elementary's Nurse Kat, or Catherine Reed. Come on in. For her quick response to rescue efforts. She responded to 2 students while they were choking at school. And in response to that, the families of those students called me and were so appreciative. They said that she truly saved their child's life. It's the quick responses like this that our school nurses do every day. We're proud to say that there is a full-time school nurse in every school in Cumberland County, and because of Nurse Kat's knowledge, life-saving skills, and vast ability to take care of people, our students are safe and well cared for. We really appreciate her and her whole family. Yep. one more.
I'm not sure when she has time to work.
Congratulations.
Next on the agenda is the roll call. Ms. Stoll?
Here.
Ms. Nichols? Here. Ms. Anita Hale is absent. Mr. Safdie?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. King?
Here.
Ms. Hamby?
Here.
Ms. Stout?
Here.
And Mr. Safdie is Zoom. I've got a little picture right here. So everyone is accounted for but Ms. Hale. Next is our declaration of conflict.
Board members, Tennessee Code annotated Title 49, Chapter 2, Section 202 defines relative as a spouse, parent, parent-in-law, child, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, grandparent, grandchild, brother, sister, uncle, aunt, nephew, niece, or any person that resides in your same household. Each of you that has such a relative is defined by statute. Please raise your right hand and let the record reflect Ms. Boston and Mr. King. Each of you certify that the votes that you make tonight will be in the best interest of the Cumberland County school system, regardless of the effect that your vote may have on the employment of your relatives.
I do.
Thank you, and let the record reflect they affirm.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of January 25th, 2024 board minutes.
Move to approve January 25th, 2024 board minutes.
It's 24. Yes. I'll second that.
It says January 25th, 2025
Can we have that changed?
on the PDF.
edited?
Yeah. So the motion on the floor is to approve the January 25th, 2024 board minutes. We have a first and second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Move to
Madam
approve.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
I requested an item to be put on the agenda.
Okay.
I don't see it.
What is it?
Discussion about the director's contract.
Okay. Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a first and second to add the director's contract. Discussion? Is that the motion? Okay. Okay. Any discussion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Stoll?
No.
Ms. Nichols?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Safdie?
No.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Hamby?
No.
Ms. Stout?
Yes.
And chair votes no. Motion fails.
May I know why?
I will state my reason for a no is because there's not enough information at this time, and I haven't received the final contract to look over and haven't had time to look over it, and so at this time, I don't think that it would be appropriate to add it for tonight's meeting.
So, to my knowledge, we aren't discussing the contract. What we were discussing is somebody that would do negotiations for Mr. Stepp. Am I incorrect in that?
But his motion was to add the contract to the meeting. It didn't-
Discussion.
Discussion.
Discussion, which would be the negotiations.
Right.
My vote of no stands.
Isn't that something that the whole board has to do?
No,
That's what we're doing.
Yes, it is.
no, that's not what they did for the first time. Am I wrong, Mr. Stepp? Who negotiated your contract the first time?
The board.
The board.
The whole board?
Yes.
That's not what the meetings say. The meetings say you negotiated the
I
contract.
did not negotiate his contract. The board did.
That's not what the meeting minutes said.
I was on the board and I didn't discuss it.
We can pull the minutes from that.
I've got the minutes. Yeah.
More importantly, policy 1.403 says any board member may place items on the agenda for discussion.
For discussion.
So, and I had also requested that it be on the agenda for discussion because we have a written request from our DOS to work with him regarding negotiating the contract and to identify somebody who could work on behalf of the board to do that.
Well-
So steps, like, what are the steps moving forward and who do we want to have do that negotiation?
Well, we need to move forward. We made a motion, and it failed, so can we move forward?
My question was, why are we violating policy?
How are we violating
I
policy?
requested to put it on the agenda, and it's not on there.
And the executive committee chose not to add it to the agenda, and then you made a motion, and the motion failed.
That doesn't work.
According to Ben Torres, that's not true, because what Mr. King is saying is true. When one of us requests something to be on it for discussion, it must go on there.
The agenda is published. You're adding it to the agenda. That has to come in form of a
It was
motion.
requested before the agenda was put out.
That the executive committee, Mr. Stepp and I discussed that, and it was premature to put it on here at this point.
That's not your decision to make.
Well, that's the request.
Policy says it goes on there.
Did you, well, you didn't talk to me.
I sent you an email.
I didn't see it.
I've got a copy right here.
Well, you may have a copy, I'm just saying I didn't see it.
That's negligence on your part.
Well, it may be.
My request was responded to.
I responded to your request.
Yes,
That's
and
the
it was
only request I
denied.
got.
Yeah. Oh, but
Mr. Patton, can I ask you to, his question on the policy? 1.403?
03,
1.403,
line 2.
that's if a board member makes a request for a matter to be on the agenda for discussion.
It's to be added.
Yeah.
But
both, that came up in both of our retreats.
it did.
Chuck
The
Cagle
request
and
was
Ben
for the
Torres.
executive committee
Yes.
to,
That's what the policy says.
that's what the policy says.
It says
So
what?
we need to add it.
That any board member may.
Is that
place an
after the
item on
agenda's been
agenda for
published?
Discussion.
Does that mean
That was
even
the
after the
request.
agenda has been
Yeah,
published?
I've read it. I just want him
I
to
mean,
say
this is an
whatever it is.
odd position.
Well, it appears that if we ask for something, it's not to be, like, if somebody asks for something to be on the agenda, we add it, right? Not decide whether it should be on the agenda.
Well, that's part of the job, is to set the agenda.
And the agenda comes from any board member.
If you request.
So
But as the
three-
executive committee, Mr. Stepp and I still don't know what we're discussing.
Why it didn't get added?
What are we discussing?
There was
Is there a new
request.
contract? Is there an old contract? I mean,
We can't discuss it until we can discuss it. We put it on the agenda.
okay. I will refer to Earl's direction on this one. I've never had this happen before.
If your policy says any board member can add an item for discussion onto the agenda, I mean, my suggestion would be to add it at the end of the meeting.
At the end of the meeting, even though the motion failed.
Well, I mean, you've got this policy that says, you know, if you were adding something to vote on, I don't think you could do it. But for mere discussion, I can't say that it
So-
shouldn't be added.
So let me ask a question. So that leaves our agenda wide open for anything. Any board member can put anything last minute on the agenda.
I thought that if it was already published, that we couldn't go ahead and just add things.
We would have to amend it. It's been,
Yeah, there's.
Air practice.
We've amended it.
A million agendas to do
Yeah.
just exactly what
absolutely,
we're.
with a vote. Is how we amend it.
And there were requests made prior to the meeting tonight, so it's not a last minute request.
It was after the agenda was published, though.
Yes.
The email that I
That's what I
received.
don't know. I'm blind to the timing on that.
See, I am too.
It was, well, it doesn't mention anything about timing in the policy.
The policy also says at the beginning of each meeting, the board shall by a majority vote approve the agenda for the meeting, which may involve the addition to or deletion of items previously included on the agenda. Board, however, shall not revise board policies or adopt new ones unless such action has been scheduled.
So, the requests went out as soon as the written request was received from the director of schools to look at negotiating the contract and for a board representative to work with him.
Probably you.
That was after the
only
agenda
thing
had
that
been published.
I understand is that to add something to the agenda on the night of the full board meeting is an amendment to the agenda, and the amendment has to be approved by the board. So there was a vote taking place, and I think it was 4-4. The amendment to the motion to amend the agenda failed. Now, if that request to put an item on the agenda had occurred, 7 days ago? When's the deadline for placing items on the agenda?
Wednesday a week ago.
8 days prior.
Did
8
that
days prior.
request come in Wednesday a week ago?
No.
Then the amendment has to be approved by the board, even though it can be just a discussion. Now, under old business, they can bring up something under old business.
Is that considered old business?
It had been previously discussed.
And I don't mind, I don't care either way.
It could be considered under old business. The contract that we signed with Mr. Stepp was 1.5 years ago.
Right.
Almost. So that's pretty old.
That's true, that's very true. But are we discussing the new contract, old contract? What are we discussing?
I'd like to discuss next steps forward, what we're gonna do going forward on this, and how we're gonna go about picking the representative that's been requested.
That's what I'm confused about. There isn't a representative that negotiates his contract. That is a full board.
You do realize that the last time that's not how that went, right?
Yes, it is how it went, according to our minutes.
So the minutes say exactly the opposite of what you're saying right now.
No.
The contract committee in April.
The contract committee
Right,
worked with him.
right, which was,
No.
There was, no.
No. The contract committee reviewed the contract. We come up with a working document. Mr. Inman asked me to make sure that Mr. Stepp received that contract, and if he had any questions, whatever, then he could get back with us. He was represented by counsel. We were represented by counsel. We had another meeting, full board meeting, in which we made some changes to the contract. It was April 14th or April 18th, which we made some changes to the contract. We discussed his salary. And Mr. Stepp was sitting in the audience at that time, and after discussion, after the changes, now correct me if I'm wrong, Earl, after those changes, and you even had some communication with Mr. Rader, didn't you?
I don't recall having communication with Mr. Rader.
Did you not?
No.
Did Mr. Rader?
My communication was with Jim Inman.
Okay.
My recollection was that Mr. Inman had some private meetings with Mr. Stepp. You correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Stepp. I'm just speaking from my recollection, and that's been more than 1.5 years ago.
Yes.
I remember that Mr. Inman brought a contract to my office.
Not
And
to me.
that was the one that ended up.
What I was sent, and I just talked with Ms. Boston on the phone, that was my only.
Right, but I didn't negotiate, I didn't represent the board. I was just asked by Mr. Inman to make sure he got a copy of the contract. Then the board, after the board made the changes, and this is the recollection from the minutes. After we made the changes, we agreed upon a salary. Mr. Stepp was in the audience, and I specifically, after the board had voted on it, we specifically asked Mr. Stepp if he agreed with the changes, and he agreed with the contract itself, and he said, yes, ma'am. So he accepted the contract sitting in a full board meeting. I didn't negotiate. I was not authorized to negotiate. I was authorized to make sure he got the contract.
So who was his one-on-one contact? Did he have a one-on-one contact regarding any questions on the contact? How did you work with Mr. Stepp when you had questions or you were talking about the contract?
It was the only phone call I had.
And we had, what, one phone call? We had one phone call, and that was just to make sure he got the contract if he had any questions.
It wasn't a negotiation.
It was not
She
a
wasn't the
negotiation.
negotiator.
So we're doing a lot of discussion about how this process works, and that's why we wanted it on the agenda, so we could have a discussion about how this process works and what the next step forward needs to be.
Let's bring it up in old business.
Okay.
You know, if that's what you want to do. The motion failed. Now I just need to approve the agenda. So do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, Mr. Safi?
I'll second it.
Will you second? Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
Nope.
Okay, so let's do a roll call. Do you approve the agenda?
Yes.
Ms. Nichols?
No.
Mr. Davis?
No.
Mr. King?
No.
Ms. Hamby?
Yes.
Ms. Stout?
No.
And Ms. Boston votes yes, but Robbie made the motion, so the motion fails. So now we have an unapproved agenda.
May I say something?
You can.
We've gone round robin with agenda things for several meetings now. Some people are upset that something doesn't get put on the agenda or that the notifications for the agenda keep changing when they go out because things get added. What you guys are saying is that there were 2 requests to have this added to the agenda on the 20th and the 21st. The initial request was sent out on the 19th by Mr. Stepp. That is well past the time that the agenda was published. So in that, if you wanted to go ahead and bring that and have that added to the agenda, then it needed to be brought up in the meeting. Everybody's all about the policies until it doesn't work for you. So we're right here about the fact that we've talked about the agenda. It was published. The public knew what was on the agenda. You wanted to go ahead and add things after the fact that was denied. So you bring it up in the board meeting. That's the way you're supposed to do that. And then the motion failed. So I don't understand, if we're doing this according to policy, why can't we just move on?
The request was made on the 19th.
And
Here it is.
the 19th. We are on the
After the agenda was
22nd.
I didn't see
published.
that email.
Today is the 22nd.
Yes.
The 19th was Monday.
The problem wasn't known until Monday. That's why.
As soon as we got written notice, we asked to put it on the agenda.
We got written notice on the 19th.
Right.
Right.
So
the agenda was
first
already
request went out the
published.
19th.
But then
But
he
the agenda
said,
was already published.
don't consider that one. I'll forward a new contract to you. We still have not received that contract. My understanding is that.
Right here.
Okay, well, when I
But
talked to
we hadn't
you, you said
received
it
it.
wasn't ready.
The email stated that we would
Yes,
receive it the same day, and I don't have anything in my email from that.
But the request to put on the agenda wasn't to discuss the contract itself. It was to discuss the next steps forward since we now have received
Right.
this request.
And so, as a board, everyone has a vote. Everyone has a say. An item was brought before the board, and we voted. It failed. So we need to be able to move on. If you, Teresa said to bring it up in old business, we need to move on and to conduct business. Everybody is waiting in this audience for us to go ahead and move on with the meeting.
I don't see why we
Yeah,
can't.
I'm
move
really
with the meeting.
surprised.
Because the agenda fails.
The agenda failed.
Just a minute, Mr. Safety.
I am really surprised. The compromise was to put it on under old business for a full discussion. And then you have 4 board members who decided to stonewall the meeting for no particular reason at all, because their item was on the agenda as under old business. And yet they still did not want to approve the agenda, even though it was under old business. This is an embarrassment.
Well, we can't move forward without an agenda, without an approved agenda.
Move to revote, reconsider
Reconsider
What are
what?
we reconsidering?
the agenda
As is.
with
With
old
that
business.
added to old business.
Old business is already on there, right?
Yeah. Put this under old business.
So if old business is on there, you're wanting to add old business?
Wanting
Put
to
this-
add the contract
The
discussion to
the
old
motion
business.
failed. We have to have a new motion.
That's what I'm saying. Move to reconsider
Reconsider approving this particular agenda.
the initial vote.
He's moving to reconsider. So what we're doing is we are revoting
On
to
this
approve the
particular agenda.
agenda with the contract discussion added to old business.
Negotiation discussion, not contract, because we don't know what the contract says. Negotiation contract.
The process.
Yes, thank you.
The process of the director's contract added to old business.
Yeah.
So you want it added under old business on the agenda, so it's
You can
actually,
bring
we
up
agree to
anything under
that.
old business. You don't have to have it added.
So I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the
Well,
agenda.
we've got his motion, but we don't have a second yet. We have a second.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Stoll,
Yes.
Ms. Nichols,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Ms. Hamby,
Yes.
Ms. Stout,
Yes.
Mr. Safety?
Yes.
Okay, board chair votes yes. Now may we please move forward. Acknowledgement of our elected officials. We have, I think the only elected official we have in the audience is Ms. Moll. Thank you for being here with us. She is one of our county commissioners. Community comments, we have 4. If Mr. Billy Dodd would come forward, please. Mr. Dodd, if you would please state your name, your address, and the nature of your comments.
Okay, my name is Billy Dodd. I live on Breckenridge Drive in Crossville here. And I'm going to speak about third grade testing, the hatchet, school bus drivers, and the auditorium. And I'm going to move real quick.
You get 3 minutes.
Okay.
Good.
From what I've seen in the paper on the third grade testing, okay, the way I look at it, there was about 344 kids from information in the paper, okay? And that's about 65% of your graduating class in 2021, okay? The rest of the state didn't do any better on third grade testing, okay? Options, summer school, less than 2 years English learner, failed once before, 1 or 2, or a waiver to be tutored. Okay, you're supposed to be ready to go when you hit the 4th grade. Okay, out of roughly 270 third graders that didn't pass, it did pass, okay, 9 were held back, all by their parents' request. Not a single administrative failure in the 3rd grade. They went on to be tutored. Okay, it seems like there's a lot of pressure from the school board onto the teachers and the principals to have no failures. It's a bad mark if they have a failure. Not every kid is made to pass every grade. I know, I failed the 5th grade. And I had to repeat a class with Mrs. Zerga, a witch. Okay, I never made that mistake again, I paid attention. So, the Chronicle reporter here should go back a year, 3 years, 10 years, and see how many 3rd graders got passed on, okay? Someone in the head school administration here last spring in the paper, and I don't recall her name, made a statement, it would be detrimental to hold back someone that wouldn't be able to go on to the 4th grade with their friends. Kids will make new friends, and they'll adjust, and they'll make contact with their old friends. And the same person said, do you know how much it would cost to re-educate them? You know what the answer is, boys and girls? Zip! Because the state pays you for attendance and food. It's not going to cost you anything to re-educate them in the 3rd grade again, for the ones that would stay there. Okay, the standardized test, boom, boom, boom. Growth includes students' standardized testing and some citing with probability that they will become proficient by the 10th grade. A hatchet. I was a custodian, and I was given a chore to read for 1 hour with 6 boys around the staff kitchen table this book. This is a 6th grade reading book, okay? I would read to them and have them read back to me. They couldn't do it. They couldn't tell me what a paragraph meant when I read it to them. They had no comprehension. I believe they graduated that May, and this was in January. Okay, these boys were 3rd
Sorry,
graders.
your time is up, sir.
They didn't get there. Okay,
Thank you.
I'll be back next month.
Come back next month.
Paul Harvey said, thank you.
To be continued.
And thank you for that.
Thank you. Mr. Chris Goddard.
I'll try to be quick. Good evening, board members. I want to first start off by applauding you all for all the hard work you do.
Mr. Goddard, state your name and address.
Chris Goddard,
please.
103 Phyllis Street Crossing.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I was at the last budget meeting for a good portion of it, but I had to leave. And so I just have a question or two concerning that. Did y'all mention pay increase for our outstanding support staff? According to the BOE pay scale, a first-year teacher assistant makes $11 an hour. The CDC assistant makes $11.50 per hour first year, with the pay being equalized to last all year. For teacher assistants, the annual pay is $16,500 gross, and that's before health insurance. These assistants are required to have at least a 2-year degree or complete 2 years of college. Not to mention our custodians make $10 an hour. And any time, these people could just leave and go to CoLinks and make $20 an hour. Something needs to be done to help this staff to stay in place in their current positions. They're desperately needed and we need to keep them. Has any more word been given about what was in the Martin intruder's backpack? We've not heard anything else about that, and I'm still wanting to know. Has there been any more discussions or action done to make sure parental alerts follow the child at the school they attend, not versus where they are zoned for? And finally, my last piece is this. I've came to the board twice about school vouchers. First, I gave you guys concerns from other parents, friends of mine, myself. Last month, I brought up policies that state about legislative issues and where by policy the board must stand. So I finally asked tonight this question: what is the board's stance going to be? More and more boards are opposing this, which, by the way, these are areas represented by Republican legislators, not Democrat. Even the county next to us in Rome County, their county commission voted to oppose this. And their state senator and their House representative, which are Republican, opposed this as well. Here are a few highlights from the bill that's recently come out. If a family obtains the scholarship, they must remain at the private school for a year. So if they don't like the school, they're stuck there for a year. Special ed students do not retain the rights to receive special education services or an IEP-related services. However, they may be eligible for IDEA, and that's a question I have: how are they eligible for IDEA if they don't sign away those rights? Think of all the students, especially our students who receive special education. What say the Cumberland County Board of Education? You are all elected to serve public education. Please remember your why. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Jason Futrell.
My name is Jason Futrell. I live at 5848 Highway 70 North. I moved since the last meeting, so. Anyway, it don't make no difference. My kids still go to school here. We go to school here. I'm just one more rat on the middle school basketball. I know I'm gonna keep on after this till I get some sort of answer. I mean, I've talked to some old school board members, and they basically told me that to put basketball in middle school was based on Mr. Stepp and Mr. Maddox. So somewhere in this meeting, I would like to hear what your opinion is on how you feel about it, moving toward it, moving away from it, and I want to hear your opinion, how you feel about it. So that's basically all I got to say. I do appreciate what you do. I feel like everybody in the community needs to give their voice on whatever. Let's get the process rolling. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Craig Clark.
Craig Clark, 2266 Highway 68, Crossville, Tennessee. Sunshine is the best disinfectant. Open and honest government requires public scrutiny. Early in last year's budget preparation, the Cumberland County School Director requested funds for important maintenance needs. An open record request revealed that the following needs were hidden and did not receive any consideration. Not just one, but two $300,000 alarm systems, a leaking roof on Pineview Elementary, a needed electrical update for Martin Elementary, and security fencing for Homestead Elementary. The estimated total cost was a little over $1.8 million. The board forced interim alternative measures, such as tarps for the leaky roof and human fire watches in hallways when parts are unavailable for outdated alarm systems. Ignoring the budget request for critical needs demonstrated poor judgment and irresponsible planning. Maintenance, security, and safety needs must be prioritized before reserving $2.2 million to expand a school with declining population or build a $500,000 tennis court. Cumberland County taxpayers expect a school board that exercises practical budget planning, prioritizing needs before wants. Taxpayers also expect the board to operate openly, without hidden agendas or manipulative procedures. The question is often asked, is it legal? Without any question about whether it is ethical or whether it is right. The board seems eager to use the tyranny of the majority to accomplish their desires without consideration for the minority or the thousands of constituents they represent. Taxpayers expect the extremely effective director of schools to be allowed to operate unfettered in tactical operations of the district. Taxpayers want the board to provide strategic direction that reflects the values and culture of our community to the benefit of our school children. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you. Now for school board reports, the TLN report, Ms. Staff.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. A lot has happened since we gathered for the last school board meeting up on the hill here in Tennessee. So I'm going to touch on several different things as quickly as possible just to bring everybody into the loop. But some of it, if you want to get more information, you can reach out to me because I've got documents or I can send you in the right direction. So last time we met, the Senate Joint Working Group for the Federal Education Funding had put their report out, but the House had not. Since then, the House Working Group has released their report. It looked somewhat similar in the way that they broke down the material and the information that they gathered. They broke down the education funding in Tennessee, the federal funding received, laws and requirements associated with federal funds, feasibility of Tennessee replacing federal funds, how to eliminate unwanted restrictions, options for consideration, further questions and considerations the committee had, reflection on the report mandate adherence and future investigative direction, and they had a section for their recommendations as well. regarding the federal funding. And they concluded their report by saying, upon receipt of requested data, the House of Representatives members of the Joint Working Group on Federal Education Funding will continue deliberations on the important topic of education funding in Tennessee. Members of the House of Representatives will continue to evaluate options on how to replace certain federal funding or eliminate unwanted restrictions placed on the state due to the receipt of such federal funds. Through these continued efforts, the representatives aspire to achieve a less restrictive environment for fostering success of all students in Tennessee schools. So very much we are still in the working process, like the Senate reported. More to come on that. I did want to bring everybody's attention, though, kind of in relation to the federal funds, to Title IX briefing webinar that I attended today regarding the current administration's initiative to recognize declared sexual orientation, which will affect how the definition of discrimination by sex is applied under Title IX. This expanded definition will apply to bathroom and locker room usages as well as boys or girls sports and girls sports. The Title IX requirements are applicable to all schools and institutions which receive federal funds. And so I just wanted to bring this information forward to everyone in attendance for you all to realize that, basically as an FYI, and for consideration regarding the timeliness of the Tennessee Federal Funding Working Group research. So if you're a constituent or if you know constituents who are in support of receiving federal funding in Tennessee schools, I'd highly recommend that you not only stay abreast of the working group research that's ongoing, but also any federal initiatives that are going to impact the institutions accepting federal funds, and then reach out appropriately to state and national representatives as warranted. Okay? So it's an important time when it comes to the funding. We also had our Governor's State of the State address, which included funds for several education initiatives. Some highlights from that, the Education Freedom Scholarship Act. It's $144 million in reoccurring funds for 20,000 education savings account scholarships during the program's first year of operation. $30 million to offset disallowed federal funds in the summer learning camps programs. $8 million to increase the number of school-based behavioral health liaisons, and a combined $5.7 million in funding for a universal reading screener and expanding access to advanced placement programs. So money coming towards education. How all that's going to roll out, don't know the details yet, but that was highlighted from the State of the State address. Regarding that Education Freedom Scholarship Act, there is a bill, an under caption bill, meaning it's slated, but we don't have bill wording yet. And it's House Bill 2468 and Senate Bill 2787. The bill currently requires the Department of Education to study the school choice programs available in other states and submit a report to the department's findings at the conclusion of the study to the Governor, Speaker of the House, and Senate no later than January of 2025. This bill is moving through. It's on the House K-12 Subcommittee next week, 227, and the Senate Education Committee calendar for 228. So that is the place card holder for the bill wording that we're looking for that Education Freedom Scholarship Act that Chris Goddard referred to in his comments tonight. Some information regarding that. Last week, Mr. Stepp and I attended the Legislative and Legal Institute in Nashville, and Speaker Sexton and Senator Lundberg were guests there and got into a lot of this Education Freedom Scholarship Bill information while we were there. What we're hearing, it's likely to be an omnibus bill to include reduction in testing and review requirements for high scoring or functioning schools and teachers. Speaker Sexton is asking for feedback, and on that note, Mr. Stepp actually gathered feedback from several of our principals and forwarded that on to Speaker Sexton and how workloads can be reduced, because they're looking at trying to work some of that into the bill. There is also some discussion regarding adding building and maintenance fund categories into the TISA funding. The bill is expected to include requirements for scholarship eligibility limited to a total of 20,000 scholarships in the 20 to 25 year school year, limitations on participation, allowable uses of scholarship funds, and scholarship payments to the institutions, not the families. Final version of the bill, like I mentioned, hasn't been officially filed yet, but these are all pieces and parts of information that's coming out, and there's been some drafts that have been leaked out to the media. So this is kind of information that's been compiled from that, and also last week's Legal and Legislative Institute. In relation to that same scholarship bill, there's another bill that requires, that's going through the process right now, that requires non-public schools that receive public funds by accepting scholarships as full or partial payment for students' tuitions to comply with the same requirements for student testing and reporting that apply to public schools in the state. So if they're taking public money, those students have to test out just like they would if they were in public schools. There'll be some certain exceptions with that. It requires non-public schools that accept a public funded voucher to pay back a prorated amount of the scholarship if the student leaves and attends an LEA before the end of the school year. So they're not going to be able to keep that whole batch of scholarship money if the student goes back to the LEA. And this is legislation that's supported by TSBA. It's scheduled for 3-5 on the House K through 12 subcommittee calendar. And then Mr. Stepp and I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, but we heard that it came out during the discussion that they weren't looking at reducing monies for head count on
Yes,
this.
the ADM, they had mentioned, they're put in the law, it's not approved yet, to not decrease the ADM.
Mm-hmm. So some interesting things coming out. So we'll see once the full bill comes out. Just a few bills that I wanted to highlight real quickly for you all that may affect policy or procedure within the schools that are moving along and looking like they might very well be approved, or they're making their way to the floors anyway. The AI bill, which I addressed last month, it's gone through the Senate Education Committee and House committees. It passed on the Senate floor today, and it was on the House floor scheduled for this afternoon as well, so I don't know what the result of that was yet. That mandates that all state universities and K through 12 public and charter schools adopt a policy for the use of AI by students, teachers, and staff for instructional and assignment purposes. We've got another one that's going through, House Bill 2058, that requires the board, in collaboration with the Department of Education, to identify math courses that may be substituted for Algebra 2 for purposes of satisfying high school graduation requirements, and to submit a report to the education committees by October 15th of 2024. That has passed all the House committees and is past the House floor, and it's placed on the Senate Education Committee calendar for 2/28. And that was something that Mr. Stepp has brought up, that Algebra 2 piece. So hopefully we'll see some change with that based on that bill. And we've got a House bill, or I'm sorry, a joint bill that proposes an amendment to Article 11, Section 5 of the Constitution of Tennessee to authorize local education agencies to approve lotteries conducted by nonprofit school support organizations, provided that the net proceeds of the lottery's revenues are allocated to the local education agency to be used for educational or extracurricular activities. That's a TSBA-supported legislation. That's gone through the department and agency subcommittee and is on the state government committee calendar for 2/28. We've got a couple other miscellaneous ones that are working their way to the floor, but I'll let you know, since this was a long report, if those passed or not once they hit the floor, and we can move on.
Thank you.
Any board members report from any training?
Just the Legislative and Legal Institute that I attended last week in Nashville, which was really good.
Mr. Patton, your legal report?
Yes, ma'am. On the Kirkman versus Board of Education case, the plaintiff's attorney in that case has withdrawn, and the plaintiffs have been given 45 days from February 16th to retain new counsel. And what will happen if they don't retain counsel, I don't know yet, but we'll find out. And that'll be around the 1st of April, so we'll be taking a look at that. No updates on the Jewel litigation or the social media litigation. I hope to have you some more information on that next month. That's it.
Do you want to mention the request or?
On the property?
Please.
We've been contacted by a surveyor about a tract of land that they have been surveying, where they have discovered that within that tract there is a 2-acre section of property that was deeded to the Board of Education in the 1930s. And there's been a request just by the surveyor, we've not heard from the owner yet, to transfer that property to the owner. But we've not received an official request from the owner of the property. And further, there's no reversionary language in the deed such that if the Board of Education ceases using that as property for a school or something like that, sometimes you'll see that in a deed. This is just a straight conveyance to the board. So if anything, this is going to be surplus real property. It's on Genesis Road. I'm not sure how far out, I think fairly. But we'll know more about that at next month's meeting. We're going to find out a little bit more. We're investigating that right now. Does that cover it?
Just to put them on notice that this is what we discovered. The reversion language is quite surprising. But in the 30s, I don't know that they did that. Next on the agenda, thank you, Mr. Patton. Next on the agenda is the director's report.
I would like to recommend for tenure the following candidates: Miranda Sims, Brown Elementary; Jesse Miles, Martin Elementary; Derek Samber, SMHS; Michael Boyd, CCHS; and Michelle Tyndall, Central. For your vote.
I'll make a motion that we grant tenure to those individuals whose name were called off.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations, you have been granted tenure.
Congratulations, guys. You can exit if you like. Oh, you got certificates first?
If you would come up, maybe we could get a photograph of all the.
From Brown Elementary, we have fifth grade teacher Miranda Sims. From Martin Elementary, we have Jesse Miles, kindergarten teacher. From SMHS, we have Derek Samber, English teacher, and is better known as Coach Samber of football. From CCHS, we have Michael Boyd, high school math. And we have Michelle Tyndall, who services Pleasant Hill North and Head Start with speech. Congratulations.
Thank you. Would you pull that up? Pull that up. Next on the agenda is the Pine View roof bid. You're going to have to help me out. What did that came in at 160?
168.
Okay, and that's actually yours. You go.
Right, so this is the roof bid that I got permission to bid out. The original bidder who got it the first time through the finance department said if they will still honor that bid, that they would have that bid. So I recommend we approve this project, and then there's a budget amendment later on to fund that project.
Okay. I'll entertain
Madam
a
Chair,
motion.
move to approve.
Need a second.
Second.
Okay, so we have a first and a second to approve the Pine View bid at 168 for the Pine View roof. Any discussion?
The funds for this, that was coming from the additional money that came from TISA, is that correct?
Yes. That's the 602,
601.
601.
Outcome money from TISA.
Outcome, that's what it's called. Yes, and I think there is a resolution in the packet to
There's a
approve
budget.
that.
Yeah, there's a
later.
budget amendment, yeah.
Okay, so it, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay,
Roll call. Roll call, since it's money.
we're just approving the bid, we'll do a roll call on the resolution.
So before before I move on to the next item, I would like to brag on some people. So I got 3 principals that their schools done amazing. All the schools are doing great jobs, but this year we had 2 schools recognized as reward schools. So Crab Orchard and South Cumberland, and Miss Bailey and Don Hall are here tonight, so congratulations. And for the state accountability, Dr. Spike is here, and that Brown Elementary was designated as our A school by the state. A lot of great things. So in school nutrition, oh wait, we have Raleigh the Reading Raccoon will be at Pleasant Hill in March, so that's exciting. That's from the State Department. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you skipped 14C, South renovation bid?
What I said is I'm gonna take a break real quick so I can do my brags and then.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Didn't know you were segueing and coming back.
Yeah, so I want to allow the 10-year teachers to sleep up for tomorrow.
Yeah.
So our school nutrition, we got all walk-in coolers and freezers at all 12 schools have temperature data loggers now installed. So what this does is this allows us to remotely view what is going on, and we get alerts early if there's an issue with any of the equipment. So it's a quick update, and if there's a problem, we can get to those quick. So great job to food nutrition to get that out. Saves us a lot of headaches. CCTE, this month is National CTE Month. So every school is highlighted each week in February on the CCTE Facebook page. So if you haven't gone on there, get on there and like it. Lots of awesome things happening. I would like to introduce our new Director of Human Services, Mrs. Neely Jolly. Excited. She has 14 plus years experience in HR with large companies, so we're super excited, and it's been a great first start, so it's been awesome. So in operations, we finally finished the facility walkthroughs with Uplands, so we're creating that whole needs system set up so we can have it ready for budget times. So we're still JROTC, the search is still on for 2 instructors. Auditorium construction is on track. I'm working on with my team to have the budget ready to the board chair by March 1st. We got our Safe Schools grant application was approved, so thank you, Mr. Magnuson, for all your hard work on that. Mm-hmm. We found out summer school will be funded by TDOE this year, not funded by us locally, so we're super excited about that. That's 6+ figures, so excited about that. And this week we had our trauma-informed and resilient school training this past Monday in partnership with Ms. Mall and Tika. And the strategic planning is ongoing, and we have another steering committee meeting tomorrow. So if any board members want to come in tomorrow morning, I think it's at 8 o'clock here in this building. You're welcome to come join us. We're Zooming. Okay.
We're Zooming.
I'll send a Zoom link out right after this meeting if you want to Zoom. So.
And by the way,
I'll be here in this.
That training was fabulous. Sherry and I attended for that along with Colleen. She joined in, but I polled just unofficially several teachers afterwards and got a lot of good feedback on it. So
it was very, very informative. We're going to work on getting more strategies to teachers to make it more effective, and they can use a lot more stuff in the schools. So I think that was good for sure. And we're excited. This year, we're going to propose the 3rd year in a row for classified employees to get a raise. So we've already done that for 2 years. We're hoping to do it for the 3rd year in a row. We love all those classified employees, and certified is required by law. So as we know, the governor is requiring us to get up to that $50,000 for first-year teachers. So we'll have a raise this year and a raise next year to get to that. And also, Ms. Boston and I, we met with Mr. Sexton at the library. Is that where we were?
We were at our office.
At our office. Okay. At your office.
Nice.
Right. So we were able to talk to him about, federal monies and how important those are. And we were also able to talk to him about public tax money going to private institutions was not a great idea. So we had a good conversation with Mr. Sexton on our values on all that. So some good stuff going on. Now back to the agenda. So next is the South renovation bid. So we've done some renovation last year. We got the bid to come in lower than what we thought. So this is the bid that come in for all the renovations at South. We're excited to get that rolling and get the equipment in and get rolling. So looking for your approval of this bids that came in.
Okay, I make a motion, we approve the bid of $546,752, and I think it's to Stubbs Construction for the South School renovation.
I'll second.
Any discussion? I just have one question. The renovation is at $750. The bid came in at $546. Are there additional things that we're going to be doing?
We did, yes, we
Okay.
did some last year. We got some more that Miss Hall, sorry, and Miss Bray are working on, so.
So it's just not included in this bid,
These are big ticket items.
but there are other things that we're going to be doing. Okay, I'm just curious. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. So we've got the renovation.
So the next item is permission for the student 4-H survey. This comes from the UT Extension Service and 4-H program. We do this every year. So this is a survey that they send out. As you can read, it has a description of exactly what it does, but this is the same every year what we do.
Does that mean?
It needs approval.
Mr.
yes.
Safety made a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. King second. So the motion on the table is for permission for the 4-H survey. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the next is permission to participate and accept grant funds for the State Improvement Grant, the SSIG. That is a follow-up grant to our turnaround grant that went to Phoenix. So this grant we will be using for personnel and also consultants to come in to help us continue that success at Phoenix. They were on the target list a couple years ago, and Mr. Lowe and his team did a great job to get off that list, and this is a continuation. And the additional targeted support intervention grant, that goes to Stone Elementary School for improvements in their students with disability achievement. And that will also go to consulting work to bring in consultants we've already been using. That's helped us get off the list with other schools and excel.
Move to approve.
Okay, we've got, Mr. Safety has made a motion to approve, and Ms. Nichols has seconded that. This is permission to accept, so we've already been awarded this grant.
Correct.
Okay, just checking. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
And the rest of the items are just monthly reports. So the first is the planning calendar. It shows where we are. We're in the process of budgeting now. Get it ready for March 1st to board chair and the board. The next is our warm body count. As you can see, we got a declining ATM, but luckily the legislators recognize that they say in the legislation we will not get docked for declining ATM. So that's what they said at the legislative.
We'll see if it's in the bill.
Is that going to be for a certain period of time, or is that going to be forever?
All they said is that there will not be a declining ADM. Your original ADM will be where you start.
And that came up more in relation to the discussion of the scholarship program and students leaving the LEA to go to a private institution.
Where did we, what number did we start? Do you have any idea?
Last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, so our original number was, I think last year was 71, or we're 7,100 this year. Last year was almost 72-ish. I don't have that warm body count in front of me.
Just approximately.
So if we lose 100, if you go by the $6,680, that's $680,000 we would lose if they don't approve. The ADM does not decrease. And in TISA, I think the number they put in the law, it's not approved yet, is per ADM is now $7,075.
Yep, they mentioned that too, that it'd be going up a little.
So if they'll let us stay at 7,200 and not decrease us, that's more money in our pocket.
That's the goal, yes. That's what they said.
Perfect.
Personnel report, nutrition reports, and substitute list coming up, so we're adding some more subs. And then all the great news in the newsletter. So board members and anyone else, if you haven't subscribed to your school newsletter, please do so. You can go to their websites and they will get you loaded up on that. So we should be ready to go.
I've got an additional question to ask about the personnel report.
Okay.
Could you explain, Mr. Stepp, what new hiring you did this year, in the past month, regarding the human service officer human resource officer.
Like, are you asking questions about Miss Neely directly, or?
No, can you tell us the process, what took place?
Oh, yeah, the process is we've had it posted well over a year. We've interviewed several. The ones we've offered turned it down for different reasons. We finally, Miss Neely had contacted us, and we interviewed process, had a second interview, and then we asked, Ms. Bray, correct me, did we not ask a couple others to interview?
Yeah,
We did.
we were turned down.
And we were turned down for those interviews. So, but Miss Neely was an awesome candidate. She has lots of experience. We were excited to get to hire her.
If you've not met her, she's just so happy.
Is Miss Neely in the audience?
Yes, she
today?
is. He introduced her just a moment ago.
I'm sorry, I must have been
Well,
preoccupied.
you have a disadvantage. I'm the only face you can see. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Stepp. I appreciate that background.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. And that completes my report.
Okay, next on the agenda is school board committees. Policy committee, Ms. Hammond.
Okay, we have several policies listed here for first reading, and it come out of committee, and we had made a few changes. Most of them were TSBA recommendations. So since this came out of policy, we don't need a second. So does anyone have any questions or discussions? Most, I think everybody was there except Miss Stowe, and she was sick, so, and Mr. Shafty wasn't there. But does anybody have any questions about these policies that we worked on?
You talking about all the policies or
No,
just 1.3?
the ones that we, 1.300, and then we had the, we'll just take it one at a time. I was gonna take it, but like I said, most everybody was there, so. Okay, does anybody have any discussion on 1.300?
I guess the two things I would point out that I was happy to see us modify. So thank y'all for adding the arts and the activities into that committee. So I'm proud to know that we're going to get a chance to represent that group or groups as well. And I guess moving a little farther down on line 14, just wanted to point out also that we have outlined plainly that issues to be discussed by each committee will be discussed by the board in advance prior to them going to committees.
Okay, that wasn't brought up during the committee meeting. Can you explain to me what you mean by that? We normally do discuss issues, but it's normally in the committees, so.
Well, that segment was the same language essentially that we had in our other policy, but just noting that it's in the new one as well, as opposed to, that was kind of the sticking point, recall, that we were having committee meetings and then taking it to the board as opposed to coming to the board and then sending it to the committee.
So it's staying the same way?
Yep.
Okay.
Just,
yeah, I'm like, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
So, okay, so nothing's really changing about that. It's
just in recognition that that's how the flow is going to be based on the policy.
So, if there are no other questions or discussions, all in favor say aye.
Is this just on
1.300 to move for second reading.
Okay.
So, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. So 1.300 is moving on for second reading. The next one is 1.404, appeals to and appearances before the board. And this has to do almost, it's like the community comments, and TSBA had some recommendations and we did some changing on that. If you want to have 5 minutes of speaking time instead of 3, you will need to contact central office, the director of schools, or his designee, to with what you're wanting to speak about 8 working days prior to the meeting. in order to be put on the agenda? To be allowed 5 minutes.
I had a
of
thought on
speaking time.
that I wanted to bring up that actually was brought to my attention by some constituents after the committee meeting last week that we hadn't really talked about. I was wondering if we should consider adding at a regularly scheduled board meeting, because we've got board meetings that, like special call meetings, that are called that are not within the 8 days.
Good point, because it
So-
should be at regular board meetings, not special called, not, and of course, we don't have community comments at.
So if we wanted to just add that in there, where it says individuals desiring to appear before the board at a regularly scheduled board meeting shall submit a written request with.
I'm good with that.
Where?
Online, where,
Line 13
is where
in the
you-
red writing.
where it says the chair shall have the, right before the chair?
Individuals, starting on line 12, individuals desiring to appear before the board shall, at a regularly scheduled board meeting is where we
Oh,
insert
yes,
it.
that's it.
Shall submit a written request with descriptive materials to the office.
So, yes, I think regular board meetings should be added in there because we don't do this at special called. So,
So add that
So-
for the second.
well, coming out of committee, we don't need a second, but since we, changed something else, we'll need a new motion on this one, right? Right, I think
Make a
so.
motion.
Well, just make a motion as amended.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I make a motion that we accept 1.404 as amended.
With the wording of at a regularly scheduled board meeting.
Yes. And so, is there any questions or discussions on that? So, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Okay, that will move on. Now, I will say the next 7 concern charter schools. We do not actually have charter schools in Cumberland County, but this does cover, Mr. Stepp, explain that please, why we have the charter school.
Yeah, the law has been updated, so TSBA has updated their policies to be more aligned on how we handle it according to the law. Like you said, though, this is going to affect larger municipal and county districts more than us because they're already being introduced. But if a charter school does come to Cumberland County, they have to present to the board to become a charter school, and then we're kind of their liaison between TDOE and them.
Thank you for explaining that. It's easier for you to do that than me. So I'm gonna take all 7 of these and bundle them together. They came out of policy, so they don't need a second. So is there any question or discussion about these? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the next one is 2.8041. And this was on the travel, and we recommended out of policy committee to add the language of, where are you going, Diane? You're moving my computer.
It's had a mind of its own tonight.
Yeah, it has. Okay, it says, under mileage rate, mileage for properly authorized travel on official school business shall be reimbursed at the mileage rate that matches state and federal rate per mile. So whatever state and federal does, that is the mileage that we will follow along with. State and federal always matches, so. Supposed to agree on the mileage, according to Ms.
The question
Bray.
I had, I wonder, what happens if they differ? I guess they don't.
I've never seen that happen.
And if it did, we can come back and amend that policy, so, and this came out of policy
You need
committee.
to see his face. It was really good.
I can imagine that's why I looked. So, are there any discussion or any questions on this? Yes, you asked that during the committee meeting, so.
That was discussed and covered. Mhm.
Yes, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, and so that is all on the first reading. We do have some on the second reading. 2.200 annual operating budget. 4.700 testing programs, and 6.312 use of personal communication devices in schools. And I'm gonna go ahead and do all three since it's on second reading. I'm sure everyone has had an opportunity to look at these, and if there is any discussion or questions, then we can do that now. And if not, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So the second reading is done, and that was the end of my report, Madam Chair.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Next committee would be Mr. Nick Davis, Athletic.
Thank you. We'll keep it brief today. We had a
Thank you.
meeting.
Thank you, Nick. Sorry.
We embarked on a fact-finding mission during our committee meeting on the 13th. We had requested to add in the arts and activities, kind of to align ourselves with what our strategic plan's vision was, to be consistent with that language, to give those groups an area to bring some of their thoughts and concerns, so we can focus on that. We had talked through some of the coaching supplement pays, on proportions on where we are spending money from a board and how we support the athletic departments currently. We didn't really talk much about the other arts or athletics there, so still gathering some data. I know Mr. Stepp and his team are working on some of that. We're waiting on a facilities assessment to come back from Uplands that will provide some knowledge of current facilities and some of their upkeep items and just the state of those buildings and facilities, so we can be mindful of that coming into budget season, to better support those student athletes and alternative activities. We'd asked about middle school schedules, high school schedules, just trying to get a grasp on what those schedules are and where we can best view them for the future. And then also we chatted. We had got an opportunity to hear from Dr. Maddox on some of his reporting and some of his thoughts pertaining to middle school direction of sports and elementary sports. And then also we were trying to build some participation data in order to help support our parents, so they're better involved and engaged within their own children or student athletes experience. Kind of segues into the portfolio construction. We're still building some of those items. I know I called it construction.
Don't do that, you said.
Freaks are out. But the idea is that we're going to give these student athletes something in addition to just their letterman's jacket and the year that they graduated, to say, hey, we were part of certain things in this community as a Cumberland County athletic participant. So that's all I've got for that.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Budget Committee meeting report. We were provided with a proposed salary scale on our certified assistant principals and up. We did not take any action. We're still digesting those. And we will pick that up after everyone's had an opportunity to look at them. If you have any questions, Ms. Bray is excellent explaining them to us, because it took me a while to figure out what we were doing, going from the percentages at which we're trying to get rid of to an actual salary scale. So if you have any questions, Ms. Bray's your girl. And that was all. No action was taken. So next on the agenda is the building and grounds. Mr. Safdie, we had no meeting because you and Ms. Stoll both were in.
I have a question about the budget
Sure.
committee meeting. Chris Goddard mentioned certified full-time employees and non-certified full-time employees. And I was looking at qualifications for food stamps, and I think, and I've said this before, that any school employee, non-certified, that works full-time and draws an income that would qualify them for food stamps is a cardinal sin. And I think we should address that and take a look at our non-certified full-time employees to make sure that no employee salary is so low that they can draw food stamps from the state of Tennessee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Safton. Okay, Ms. Bray.
No going down. We need you. You can't hurt yourself.
No injuries.
Yeah, I'd have to file my own workers' comp claim. Oh, I've got Neely,
No,
she
no.
can do it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Revenue-wise, we're still doing quite well. Collections coming in on property taxes. We did get our outcome-based funding here. We still got, looks like revenues around 40 million. Our expenditures are at 35, but keep in mind, some of the big projects like we just talked about, those have not been booked yet. So once those start being booked, you're gonna see this kind of come probably more back in line.
Is the 601, I know the county received it, we received it, is it
It is not, it's in here, but it's not in the budget per se. What we would have to do is just like tonight, where I'm moving that money and I'm putting it in that revenue account, and then we're gonna put it towards the expenditure. It can be in the bank and in the revenue, but not in the budget. It's two very distinct things.
But it just rolled into it in the general fund, or general purpose?
Right, it rolled into it, and we have to designate how we wanna use it. Tonight, we're starting that process.
Thank you.
As far as sales tax, unfortunately, we're still behind for the year. Now, we are still ahead of where we were last year, but we are behind where we had budgeted. We're still down 270,000. Hopefully, this will catch itself up, but it's very difficult to budget this, so being off $200,000 on that is not as significant as you might think. But that's just something, as someone used to say, buy local. Is there any questions on this? If not, we'll move on to the budget amendments. The first one is the ever-ending ISM grant. This is just more revisions that are required by the state, just moving some monies around from one line to the other. Any questions on that one?
What does the, just out of curiosity, other construct, I think that's what it said.
Contracted.
Other contracted services.
It's just things that she will contract with outside contractors for. Dr. Eldridge, what would be an example?
Their career exploration mobile lab, we're doing some things that we're
Okay.
contracting with on that.
I was just curious.
Okay.
When it says other.
Understand?
Do you want to take these all at the same time, or do you want to do them individually?
Take them all at the same time. I'll make a motion that we approve all of 141.
You want me to still go through them, or?
Yes, please.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Yes,
The
sorry.
second one is for the roof repair that you folks just approved. This is moving some of that outcome-based funding into maintenance repair to repair one of our roofs that has a tarp on it, which should make the principal and everybody there, including me, very happy.
Very happy.
I have a question.
Uh-huh,
You said outcome funding.
the 600,000.
Talk about that a little bit, please.
That's just- go ahead.
So when we got our TISA estimates last year, this was the line item that said outcomes, that said TBD. They didn't know how they were gonna formulate our success and how it directly correlates to money yet. So we didn't have that until well into December. Once they figured out how they were gonna formulate our achievements, our successes, everything that we did, we got, Dr. Farley, it was 2 days to appeal, is that correct? So they sent us all that data, and they said, figure out how we calculate it, and you can appeal if you can prove we didn't calculate it. So this team here locked themselves in their offices for 2 days and went through all the data, and we sent back our appeals, and then the next week, I think it was December 15th, I forwarded y'all what they formulated as our TISA outcomes for the first payout, which was 601. And then we'll get a second payout and a third payout going through spring. But it's all based on how successful we were.
We actually received the money December the 27th, I believe.
Follow-up question. If we hadn't got this money, how would we fund this?
The Pineview roof, I would recommend it from the fund balance.
Well, we have it now. Do we not have it now?
Oh, yeah,
That
we
would
have.
be
It's,
so.
we do have it now.
And I understand this expedites the process.
Correct.
Process to do the roof.
Yeah, if we had to go to fund balance, we'd have to go to commission. To do that. Yes.
Well, it's got county commissioner on it.
Well, I
I
can
mean,
take
this
the
is
budget.
going, but we'd have to go ask for a different thing from fund balance.
Right.
Yes, if
On
it
that
was.
entrance for permission for fund balance.
State School Improvement Grant. Is that different from the outcomes?
No, this is what the All Safe Schools grant. This one's on me. We didn't spend all the money last year, and I neglected to put the rollover. We had the money, it's in the bank, but here again, I neglected to rebudget it. So this is just my rebudgeting from that grant into this year's budget.
So it's not coming out of the 601?
No, this is a grant. It has nothing to do with the 601. This is just a Safe Schools
This is
grant.
just a grant.
Thank you.
And we've already got this
Oh, yeah, we had
specified
it
on.
last year and it just rolled over, but the accountant in me still has to think about this, rebudgeting it for the next year, even though it's in the bank.
And it's already specified
Yes.
on the safety.
Yes.
That was listed in the grant
Right.
that we got the money for.
It's very specific. Yeah.
And this is
Thank you.
not the new grant that
No,
we
this
got.
is from the previous one. They allowed us to roll what we had, and actually, this money's been spent for what we said it was going to be spent for. The next one starts the federal grants. The next one is the State School Improvement Grant. This is a new grant, and the TDOE requires that all these funds be used and be placed in other charges. So that's what our folks in federal programs has done.
So what will they be?
Yeah.
What's other charges?
So this is, once again, a follow-up to the TAG grant. This is the explanation I gave you earlier for SSIG that we saw. So Phoenix was under the TAG grant, and they're finishing that out. And then this is also going to them to continue their improvements. We got personnel, we got contract services, so TNTP and other services coming in that already work with all the schools to help continue the improvement so we can stay off that list.
This is the one we discussed earlier.
Correct.
Yes.
Now, is part of this going to Stone Elementary as well?
No.
No.
So that's different.
This is Phoenix, correct? This
That's
is all
just
Phoenix.
Phoenix alone.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then the next one is where they had moved funds from an assistant that we were unable to hire to some equipment that was needed for federal programs. Is that all of them?
Correct.
Is that it? Does anybody have any other questions?
Thank you. I make a motion we approve the 141 and 142s.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Stoll?
Yes.
Ms. Nichols?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Hamby?
Yes.
Ms. Stout?
Yes.
Ms. Boston votes yes. Mr. Safety?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries. All your resolutions, 141 and 142 have been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next on the agenda is the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve consent.
Second.
Okay, so I have a first and second motion to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Perfect. Next is old business.
Discussion, I guess, of the process for contract negotiations with Mr. Stepp. What is the process? How are we gonna proceed?
I would like to ask Mr. Patton if it's all right with you, Madam Chair. Could Mr. Patton explain to us the process of the contract? Or do you want to
Absolutely.
explain it? It's up to you.
It's up to this board to establish a process, but in order to establish, a process, I would think this board would need to vote to extend the contract or to enter into a new contract. I think one has got to happen before the other, really. That's just my thinking.
So we would vote to extend it before we know what it is, or we vote to agree that we're gonna look into?
Right now,
a new contract?
right now, you have a contract that is through,
June 30th of 2025.
25. And the contract indicates that if, bear with me just a second. The board may extend the term of this contract at any time with concurrence of the director. However, unless the board acts on or before the first day of March 2025 to extend the contract, such failure to act shall serve as notice to the director that the board does not intend to renew the contract. So this contract, the board has until March 1st of 2025 to give notice of its intent to renew the contract. If the board desires to do that, the board certainly can. But I guess my thought is, there are some statutory requirements, but I don't think they go so far as to specifically say, here is how you negotiate a director's contract. In the past, I will say there's been a contract committee. I think there have been committees for that specific purpose. Those meetings, obviously, if they consist of more than one board member, those are going to be public meetings. There is an exception to the Open Meetings Act that indicates that that the board, let me get to that, apologize. So the Tennessee Open Meetings Act defines a meeting as the convening of a governing body of a public body for which a quorum is required to make a decision or to deliberate towards a decision. Meetings to make a recommendation to a single individual, such as a county mayor or dean of an educational institution, I would think director of schools would be included in that, are not meetings covered by the Open Meetings Act. Now, I don't know that that encompasses negotiations, which are more of a back and forth type idea. So I don't know that a meeting of that type would fall under an exception to the Open Meetings Act. I think some of what you're wanting to ask is, how can we have these deliberations? My immediate thought is that those deliberations have to be open to the public, just like any other meeting of the board would. Unless the board does establish someone as a negotiator of the contract. But I think in order to establish one person who's going to be in charge, the board does have to come up with some parameters to give that person. And that needs to be a board decision, which would start, I would think, from the standpoint of, hey, we want to renew this contract, or we want to extend the contract, or make an offer. That's my thought.
And then, this is just a question, if we had one individual negotiator, it would still have to come before the full board for approval.
Absolutely.
So why, I don't understand what the meaning of a negotiator, or why we would need a negotiator. We did not do that before. We did not, we had a contract committee, and then Mr. Inman, I remember in the meeting, Mr. Inman asked Ms. Boston during the meeting to contact you to make sure that you were okay with the contract, and then it came back to the full board. So, I don't understand, I'm
Well, I guess at this point, it kind of doesn't make any difference what happened before, right? We as a board need to decide what's the best way for us to proceed with this now. if we want to do it, I guess, as a full board, or if we do want somebody to work back and forth and then come to the full board with something that's been agreed to with Mr. Stepp.
I don't know, I'm at a loss, I don't understand why we would need a negotiator, so.
So what's the vote to extend? What is that?
What
Vote
is
to extend, I mean, what does
a
that?
vote to extend?
Just extend the contract, extend the time? I mean, if it's good till June of '25.
Well, it's a 3-year contract. By statute, you can only offer a director of schools a 4-year contract. So you would vote to extend it 1 year. And then at that time, by statute, you have to renegotiate.
So it would be we're in the midst of things. We've done a couple reviews on Mr. Stepp and his performance, and so now we're at the point he's asking for renegotiation of his contract. So we as a board, how do we want to move forward with that? It could be extension, it could be a change in contract. I mean, we need to find out from Mr. Stepp what he's looking for with it in his renegotiation request, but that's why we wanted it to be discussed tonight, so we can just decide what are the steps moving forward.
Robbie, did you have something?
At what point, or not just at one point, but would it be a service to this board to establish a contract committee? And if so, when would that appropriate time be to establish a contract committee? So I'm open to suggestions.
Well, if we've had the request to renegotiate, I would think we'd need to be establishing the steps pretty quickly. Whether that be to put a contract committee in place or one person, or meet as a full board regarding this.
Well, I see that the contract committee can be composed of 3 board members and it be held publicly and then presented to the board, the discussions that took place, and then passed it on to the attorney to make sure that all the I's were dotted and the T's crossed.
So are you making a motion? Or is this for discussion?
This is just for discussion.
Okay.
I'm not making a motion, I'm just saying, when would we, first of all, when would we establish a contract committee? And second of all, my opinion is the contract committee should be composed of, like any of the other committees that we have, 3 members and held publicly. I mean, that's just an idea. Now, I don't know if there's any urgency. Is there an urgency to extend the contract of the director of schools 1 year now? I mean, there's a whole year, March 2025, before we have to make a decision on the full contract. So if there's an established reason for extending the contract now at this period, I'd like to hear it.
Good question. I would imagine that being proactive in retaining the service of someone that is producing results would be in our best interest. And if all that entails is going through the negotiation process of understanding what is valuable to Mr. Stepp, to feel confident in his duties to continue doing what he's doing and beyond, I think we owe that to him and ourself and community, to hear what it is that he feels like is valuable to him, given where he came in and where we are and where we're trying to go. If there are things that are not included in there, clearly if the contract included all of those things, we wouldn't be having this discussion. So that's me reading into it maybe a little bit, but my ask is that we ask Mr. Stepp explain.
If the contract, if the contract contained all of those things, we wouldn't be having this
The
discussion.
old one.
What are you
You're saying
talking
the
about?
old contract.
Yeah, so the contract that he's currently under was good at that moment in time.
Right.
And given,
It's no longer good?
We haven't seen another contract, so how do we know if?
what we're trying to get to is the point that Mr. Stepp has asked us to reconsider his contract terms.
Yeah.
And all we're trying to establish is the best means to hear his stance, to understand what it is that he is valuing now, and he feels he has the ability to bring to the table, and how we should compensate him and measure him based on those terms. And that's, I don't think that's, that's not out of our scope to do proactively versus hope that someone doesn't steal him between now and the time that our contract is up. And we are indeed going into a lame duck year where we don't have a director of schools that's retained, and we disregarded his request to review his contract.
I agree.
So are we looking at his contract, or are we looking at a new contract?
I
think that's, since you're requesting this, that's up to you.
I'm requesting to renegotiate the contract, which could mean a new contract, which could mean a different salary. That's what we do in negotiations, is we see what one side wants and what another side wants.
Well, I know, but you have a new contract that you were going to forward to us, and you had it a minute ago and said it's ready for us to review.
I do have it ready for you to review, and I can get that out to you. I also requested, well, if I don't have it ready, why don't we put my old contract on the agenda, and we could just discuss the old contract. But
So do we want to discuss the old, or do we want to look at the new? Or do we want to look at a combination of both? I mean,
Say that again, Mr. Stepp.
I mean, he's under contract now. Do we look at that contract and renegotiate the terms of that contract, or are we negotiating the terms of a new contract? I guess I'm trying to figure out where we are.
We can't negotiate a new contract because we're only allowed to extend a contract for 1 year because he has a 3-year contract.
Right.
Now, in this extension, is he asking for, in fact, that extension will go into 226. Is he asking for an extension to go into 2026 and a salary adjustment made for that 1 year? Well, okay, so let's assume that all of this discussion could be handled in a contract committee. Because I haven't seen the contract that Director Stepp is submitting, and I think it's something that the contract committee and all of the board members who attend that contract committee meeting should be in the discussion.
Well, if you're negotiating a salary adjustment, then that's going to have to go. Is that not going to have to go into budget?
Well, I think the first thing to do is bring the suggestions on a contract and the old contract to the contract committee. Now, I know everybody says, well, the contract, it's only got 3 board members, but that's not the way we've been working this. The way we've been working it is there's 3 members who are part of a contract committee, and the rest of the board can attend, provide suggestions, put input in, and have a full discussion at that time as well. I mean, it's a triage, right? The contract committee is like a triage where the discussion of contracts can be brought up and decisions made on what processes we want to use.
Or it could just be an agenda item on a regular board meeting and save an extra meeting.
Madam Chair, I think Mr. Patton was wanting to
Yes,
say
sir.
something.
I'm sorry.
You wanted to say something?
All I was going to say is that it seems to me that the appropriate order of the things that should happen are that the board should vote to extend the contract if the board desires to do that. At that point, if Mr. Stepp is not happy with the contract as it exists, he would propose the change in the contract, and then the committee could be appointed to negotiate that contract. I mean, that seems like the normal flow of what would happen. And I may be off.
Well, I think
I
the
don't think
extent, and I would somewhat disagree if I understood you correctly, meaning like we're going to vote to extend regardless of how good or how bad the contract proposal is. So if he proposes a new contract that says, I'd like to work for free and actually pay you, and I'm going to do it for the rest of my life.
That's not what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
I'm just saying that if one way or the other, if Mr. Stepp is going to continue working for this board, this board has to decide to extend the contract in some form or fashion. Now, if the board makes that offer, Mr. Stepp is absolutely at liberty to say, I don't want to do that. And here's what I think is fair. And at that point, the board could consider, you know, if what he was proposing made sense for this board and this community.
Yeah, I just think the extension, to make a vote on an extension shouldn't be just whether, in theory, do we want to extend without having the actual contractual language proposed to be at least presented. Like he's went to great lengths already to put the contract together that he would like to see us adopt. Why wouldn't we look at it?
I don't know. I haven't read it.
I know, but I haven't seen it either. I'm just saying, the point is, let's look at it. Let's figure out what we need to do to look at it, whether we add it to the next budget meeting, we create a committee, we have a committee that all the members are at and have the same thing as a regularly scheduled meeting, and then we have another meeting, and then we can decide if we would like to discuss all of the items that are in his existing contract and the new contract. So we're gonna have to discuss what he's got and what we have.
So we're going to, and you just said it, we're going to look at his old contract, and then we're going to discuss his new contract.
I would say we'd have to use one to compare the other, right?
Why wouldn't we
So
look at both of them?
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
Is he proposing a new contract? Are you proposing the new contract?
So when you negotiate, you discuss those options. I've asked to renegotiate. So
Okay.
can we discuss options? We haven't itemized anything. You don't itemize when you do a negotiation. And standard operating procedure on most boards that I have people that in my study council, when you do a director review, you also make a proposal to the director after that review if it's above satisfactory or if it's better than that, and you make an offer of an extension or something. So that's just a standard operating procedure. That didn't happen, so I just initiated the Friday that we were setting the board agenda. As one member of the executive committee, I requested to renegotiate my contract to put it on the agenda. So that's all I did. All I'm trying to do is what all these other boards do, is I'm just asking, since my evaluation was above satisfactory, well above average, I think the board, most boards would make an offer of some sort to the director.
Are you talking about Mr. Stepp? Are you talking about removing the old contract that we had for 3 years and reestablishing a new contract with you?
I'm saying there's multiple options. So if the board decides no new contract, but we'll extend a year, then that's what the board decides. If the board sees a new contract, because we'll put everything on the table when we negotiate, right? So we'll talk about both options, and then the board makes the decision. I don't like that option, but we like this option, or we don't want to offer an option. I'm just asking to be considered.
And I think to answer the question about timeliness of getting this process started that Mr. Safdie asked, and then Teresa's question about budget is, depending on what discussion is had, this may impact the budget. So there is a timeliness factor regarding having this discussion and getting the ball rolling. So if there is a monetary change, that is part of the budget process.
I'm going to ask a question I asked during the committee meetings. This sounds like, I'm trying to make things clear. This sounds like you're wanting a increase in pay based off of the evaluation. And I will ask again, do we give our employees a raise according to their evaluation.
I didn't hear him ask that.
No.
I didn't.
He said his evaluation was above average, and he believes that
That's
he's
not what I
wanting to
said, ma'am. I
renegotiate.
said there's options that we can discuss. When you're above evaluation, the board usually makes an offer of some sort.
Okay, that's same thing I just said.
Not
Well, you said
necessarily
pay raise.
salary.
An offer, we could make an offer to reduce his pay, right? An offer can go both ways.
Or extend the contract or change the contract.
Could offer to terminate the contract.
Question though, as far as with the evaluation, we're supposed to do that twice a year. So in every evaluation, are we expecting to go ahead and renegotiate or create a new contract every evaluation?
No, it'd be
That's a good
annual.
question.
But-
Like,
but-
what is the purpose of conducting research, right? Or making a decision like, hey, we thought about this performance and this. I don't,
Typically, it's annually.
Well, I mean, we have a contract, so I guess if you have a contract, then, and you do have the evaluations, you're wanting to make sure that they're performing up to the standards that you have in your contract as well.
Right.
But if we do that twice a year, I mean, or even on a yearly basis, are we asking to go ahead and look at renegotiating that on a yearly or, semi-annually, I guess?
Well, it sounds like
basis?
most boards do some version of that depending on the outcome of the evaluation once a year.
Just once a year or twice a year?
Once.
Usually the observation or the evaluation starts in October, and in most contractual languages, you would have discussed the evaluation with me before the actual board meeting, and you would have decided on whatever it is you'd like to do, a one-year extension or whatever. Whatever those options, it could be any option that the board decides to do, no action, whatever. But that's the protocol for most of the school boards I know of.
Well, I guess I don't understand then why we would have a 2, 3, or 4-year contract if we're looking at redoing that on a yearly basis. That just becomes a yearly contract then.
well, our contract terms can state whatever we value. And if we value performance to be measured biannually or annually or quarterly, and we value those things, we can incentivize him potentially to do or not do whatever we would ask of him to do.
Right, but I guess my point is, why do you have a longer term of a contract if you're just gonna go ahead and expect to revisit it every year?
It's to be determined. That's what he's asking to do, is renegotiate the terms and conditions of the contract. So all language can be considered. The length, the amount, and all the things we're asking him to do can be discussed.
And we're gonna start doing this once a year instead of having a
that's
3 or 4 year contract.
The three-year contract helps provide stability from the get-go, but we need to have flexibility to change that contract as needs of the district change or directions change.
Job performance.
Job
If
performance.
he's underperforming, then we have a way to change that ourselves.
I understand that, but I guess
And that could happen before 3
Or we
years,
give
so
him more
good or
incentive
bad.
to do better. I mean,
Right.
that's what we do. So we motivate him, help him, give him the tools he needs to do a good job, which he is doing.
Ms. Hamby, are teachers' contracts annual or
Yes, they are.
multi-year? So they're renegotiated every year?
Not their pay, but yes.
So they can't negotiate pay?
No, they do not negotiate pay.
So
Packages.
pay's not even a discussion?
Not from our employees, no. We do the budget, they get their raise.
You're in
whatever we-
collaborative conferencing?
Your budget, yes.
You're in collaborative
How
conferencing.
often is collaborative conferencing?
Every 3 years?
We can bring up salary every year.
Yeah, okay, so,
Open it
so
up
you,
every
so you can discuss it as often as you like.
Don't get very far, but yes, sir, we sure can.
Right, well, yeah.
We can.
I mean, it's, that's what we're looking for, is just opportunity to
collaborative
discuss what's valuable to you, so we can incentivize you to go do the best you can. And I think that's all that this is about, from what I gather, is like, let's look at what's valuable, and consider it. If no action is no action, then it's not, but, not allowing us to look at it is certainly telling a story.
So now what?
Steps.
Conversation.
Is there anybody that would like to be the person to negotiate a contract?
I think, and we're not voting on anything tonight, and as far as I know, we're not voting for that.
I didn't
We're
ask if anybody
discussing
wanted to vote. I just
But
asked if anybody would
My
volunteer to
opinion
do
would be a
that.
I
contract
don't think that
committee,
there's-
not one person.
Yeah, I don't think there should be one person to go ahead and
I think
negotiate a
that we
contract.
should, I
That's
think
okay.
at some point in the next couple of weeks, that the process begins with establishing the contract committee, and then holding the contract committee meeting on Wednesday, or whenever we have the other committee meeting.
The second Tuesday of the month.
A full discussion, that way a full discussion, you know, as chairman, you have the prerogative of if you want to establish a contract committee, you have the prerogative of asking the board now. I think it's part of that policy 1.3.
1.403.
1.403 to establish the committee, and then you can select those people on the committee.
Just remember that line 14 of policy 1.3 indicates that the issues that are going to be discussed by the committee are to come from the board. So
No, that's
the
fine,
board's
but
going to
that's
have
the
to.
name of the committee.
The board's going to
contract
have to
committee.
meet before the contract committee to determine the things that they would like them to discuss, is my point.
Well, if we
So-
establish well, that's true, Nick, that's right.
Yep.
So if we establish a contract committee, then in this particular instance, we would discuss the contract with the director of schools. So, Madam Chairperson, you make the decision with the consent of the board, and then this discussion can end tonight, and we can begin it fully prepared when we have the contracts and we've studied it, so we can contribute to the contract committee.
Okay. Well, I think the board, which we're just in discussion for tonight, I think the board has to decide whether they want to do this under a contract committee or if they want to do this as a whole. And that's the next decision that needs to be made. Once that decision is made, then we can move forward with, you know, the full board, the contract committee. And I think if we can send out a copy of the old contract or the current contract, let me say that. And then Mr. Stepp can get to us the new proposed contract.
I suggest that to do that, we establish a special called meeting, the contract.
Okay.
I mean, that, as opposed to establishing, as opposed to taking the full discussion at the board meeting, at the full board meeting,
Okay,
a regular board meeting,
Well-
excuse me.
right. We could do that.
Make a motion to schedule a special call meeting.
Make a motion.
I can request that we make a motion, right?
Jesus.
You don't have to make a motion, but
So I think the direction is, the next thing is to make the determination whether we want to work as a committee or whether we want to work as a full board.
I'd like to work as a full board. If we're gonna have a special call meeting to look at the contracts and all, that's a full board. I'd like everybody at the table and everyone's questions to be heard and.
And if it's a committee,
Discussion.
we're all gonna be there anyway, so we might as well do it with the full board.
If I might make a suggestion, Earl, do you have a copy of the current contract?
I do.
Could you email that to the full board
Yes.
tomorrow morning?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
if you could send us a copy of whatever you're proposing.
As part of the negotiation, it could be extension, it could be the contract, it could be whatever.
Well, if you want us to consider it, please email it to us.
I will.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, any questions from the media? Oh, come on. One question, that's all I'm asking. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Diane, did I have any?